The top business stories live from the Sky News City studio. An investigation into Britain's fuel prices finds drivers have been paying an extra 6p per litre as supermarkets drove up their margins. PwC Australia fires 8 partners, including its former chief executive, after confidential government tax plans were leaked. And how the rise of artificial intelligence has fueled demand for expert advice from management consultants. Good morning, this is Business Live with Ian King at the new times of 11:30 and 4:30 on Sky News every weekday. Well, we begin with some breaking news, and the Competition and Markets Authority in the last half hour has found that supermarkets have been pushing up their margins on fuel prices, leading to drivers paying an extra 6p per litre at the pump. The investigation by the CMA was launched last July following concerns that falls in wholesale prices were not being passed on to consumers. The CMA says the industry needs to be held to account and has called for a fuel finder scheme to be introduced to help drive down prices. And it has fined Asda £60,000 for not providing information when required. Well, the Chief Executive of the Competition and Markets Authority, Sarah Cardell, joins me now. Sarah, welcome to you. I mean, you think that competition has weakened in recent years. Why is that?
Yeah, that's right. So what we found is that we have seen a weakening of competition amongst retailers for both petrol and diesel. We've seen that the margins for retailers have increased over recent years. And what we're seeing is that at the end of the day, that motorists are not getting the best deal possible. Motorists are paying more than they would be paying if margins had remained at historic levels. We think that we need to inject a real dose of extra competition into this market. That needs to happen quickly. So we've put forward 2 key recommendations to government today to take forward an open data fuel finder scheme that will make it much easier for motorists to find the best deal from their phone, from their car, without having to drive around from station to station. And at the same time, we think the market needs to remain subject to ongoing scrutiny, and we're recommending the introduction of a new fuel monitoring scheme to set that up.
We'll come into that in a moment, Sarah. But first of all, you have decided that there isn't a cartel in play here. What's the difference between competition weakening because Asda in particular are not as competitive as they were and a cartel?
Yeah, so what we've seen is that Asda in particular historically has been the cheapest of the supermarkets. Back in 2022, they took a decision to increase their internal margin targets, actually treble their margin targets. We saw a similar move by Morrisons to double their targets. Now, in a market where competition is working well, you'd expect other retailers, other supermarkets, other fuel retailers to respond competitively, to seek to win market share. We haven't seen that happen at all. We've seen a complete absence of any kind of competitive reaction. Instead, the retailers as a whole have tended to track the price movements, and that's resulted in an overall increase in margins at the expense of the motorist.
Is it possible to look at supermarket fuel pricing in isolation, given how a lot of the multiples link in-store discounts to what people pay at the pumps?
Yeah, so we have been looking very specifically here, as you say, through our 12-month market study of what's happening in the road fuel market. That's enabled us really to drill down and get to the bottom of the decisions that individual retailers have been taking. That's very separate from the review that we're doing at the moment, looking at grocery prices more broadly. We'll be reporting back on that in a few weeks' time.
Now, the Liberal Democrats, in response to your report, have said they want supermarket executives hauled into Downing Street and stripped of their bonuses. What do you make of that?
Well, I think what we're really focusing on is making sure that we can work with the government now to improve competition in this market. We think there's a real opportunity to do that, to make sure motorists can get the best information possible, to be able to make the right choices, and to make sure that as a result of that, there's greater competitive pressure on these retailers that they have to offer motorists the best deal possible.
Now, one of your remedies is for this fuel finder scheme that you mentioned a moment ago. How would that work? And does any other country do anything like this?
Yeah, so the idea here is that we have a statutory scheme. We think it's really important that this is set up in legislation, and that requires every single retailer to provide real-time, live, comprehensive information about their prices, every single fuel station across the country. Make that available to the public, but critically also make that available in a way that, for example, comparison sites and navigation tools can incorporate that information. That means that motorists will have that at the touch of a button. It should really transform the access to real-time pricing information. And we have seen similar kind of schemes, for example, in Australia and in Germany, and we've seen that those have delivered improvements in pricing and improvements in the deals that most risks are able to secure.
And in an ideal world, how quickly would this be implemented?
I think it's really important this is implemented as quickly as possible. We can see the detriment to motorists at the moment. So we will be absolutely working with government to take this forward as quickly as they're able to.
All right, Sarah Cardell, good to talk to you this morning. Thanks very much indeed for joining me.
Thank you very much.
Bit of breaking news for you now, and Sky News can reveal that the former finance chief of Carillion is to be banned from holding company directorships for more than a decade. Our city editor Mark Kleiman is reporting that Zafar Khan, who served as the construction group's group finance director for less than a year prior to its implosion in early 2018, has been hit with an 11-year boardroom ban. It will be the first such ban imposed under the Company Director Disqualification Act against any former Carillion executive. You can read Mark's story right now on our digital platforms. The drugs giant AstraZeneca said today that antibody treatment for metastatic non-small cell lung cancer had shown promising results in late-stage phase 3 trials. It said the treatment, called Dato-DXd, had demonstrated a significant improvement in progression-free survival in patients compared to the current standard of care chemotherapy. But shares of the company have fallen by 4% this morning, and that is on news that some patients treated during the trial had died. Well, more than 1 million people worldwide are diagnosed with advanced non-small cell lung cancer each year. The Australian arm of business services group PwC has fired 8 partners, including its former chief executive, under the tax leak scandal that has engulfed the business. PwC's come under fire after it emerged that it used confidential information to win new business by advising clients on changes to tax rules being made by the Australian government. Well, the company said today that the partners dismissed, including Tom Seymour, its former chief executive in Australia, had broken professional standards. The diagnostics company Yourgene Health has agreed to an £18 million takeover by its larger rival Novacyt Group. Yourgene, which is based in Manchester, was founded 10 years ago and provides technologies and services to enable genomic medicine. These include non-invasive prenatal tests and screening products in reproductive health and precision medicine used to test for cystic fibrosis. The pair said today that their combination would create a more scaled, diversified operator in the diagnostic sector. And the global sports fashion retailer JD Sports today struck a franchise agreement that will see it build a major presence in the Gulf states and in North Africa. JD said the agreement with GMG, a Dubai-headquartered wellbeing company, would see around 50 stores open under the JD fascia during the next 5 years, with locations focusing on the United Arab Emirates, Saudi Arabia, Kuwait and Egypt. Well, GMG already operates more than 500 sports stores across the region, over 7 different concepts. Now, the parent of a city communications firm whose clients include Harvey Nichols and Gatwick Airport has received $100 million in a deal that sees it have a new Middle Eastern majority shareholder. SEC Newgate, whose other clients include Hovis and the hotels giant Accor, has been valued at more than $250 million following the investment from Bahrain-headquartered Investcorp. It's the latest in a string of deals this year in the financial communications and PR sector. Well, SEC Newgate's chief executive, Fiorenzo Tagliabue, joins me now. Fiorenzo, good to see you this morning. Were you looking to bring in new investments?
Yes, good morning. First of all, everybody. Yes, this deal with Investcorp will allow us to feed our M&A strategy, which is with a platform with a pipeline which is very rich and very strong, and this will allow us to increase our geographies in mainland Europe and in APAC regions.
You mentioned M&A, their mergers and acquisitions strategy. Obviously, firms like yours do well when there's a lot of that around. What are your expectations for the second half of this year on that front?
But the expectation for the year is, I think, looking at what I see will be very positive, because we have a market which is in a certain way, fragmented with situations which are performing much better, others are a bit slower, but as a whole, our presence, our performance is very positive, perfectly matching with our budget, and I'm sure that by the end of this year we will do still better.
And more broadly, you have clients right across the world. What's on their minds right now?
But listen, as you know, we are already present in 22 countries with a very strong presence in UK, which is our second market, in mainland Europe, and in US, which represents for the group our first market with about 30% of our revenues. Now, what we would like to do is to increase our presence in APAC region. Just to mention one country where we would like to invest is surely Japan, and also to complete our footprint in Europe, where we need to have a more significant presence in Scandinavian, of course, and in the Central and East Europe.
Now, Investcorp has backed a number of Italian businesses, including Gucci over the years. They obviously quite like Italy and its business scene. Why do you think that is?
Investcorp invested $1.8 billion in Europe in the last years, and significantly they did 6-7 important deals specifically in Italy. But the reason for this is that there are many companies in Italy who have been discovering the strength of the private equity fund, and that in a certain way they represent an alternative to the listing a company. It was the same for us because we were listed on AIM in London until March 2022. But at the end, when we realized that we need more resources, more financial resources to do an important investment in US, that we did after that, the only way to achieve this was to do a first deal with Free Hills Capital Partners, another private equity fund, which provided to us a part of consideration to do this deal in US. So in the same way, there are today many opportunities from the point of view of the private equity funds in Italy to invest and to achieve important financial results.
All right, Fiorenzo, we have to leave it there. Thanks for joining me this morning.
Thank you very much. See you.
Well, following Wall Street's gains on Friday evening, stocks in the Asia-Pacific region enjoyed a largely positive session overnight. The highlight in the top left-hand corner there, so you can see the Nikkei 225 in Tokyo hit a fresh 33-year high after a survey from the Bank of Japan pointed to an uptick in corporate activity. Well, in Europe, stocks have also made a positive start to the second half of the year. Here's the current picture. All of the main continental European indices in positive territory right now. Talking points in Europe today include Generali. Shares of Italy's biggest insurer are ahead by nearly 5% in Milan after the wealthy Del Vecchio family's investment vehicle was permitted by regulators to take a 10% stake. Well, here in London, the FTSE 100 is also in positive territory right now, up just over a third of 1% higher, led by the mining heavyweights. The leading blue chip gainer is Anglo American. It's ahead by some 3.5% after De Beers, in which it owns an 85% stake, struck a new 10-year diamond production agreement with the Botswana government. Among the leading fallers, however, is the medical equipment supplier Smith & Nephew. The shares off nearly 4% right now on adverse broker comment. And I should say AstraZeneca is the leading blue chip faller. I mentioned them earlier in the programme. Outside the FTSE, Capita is ahead by 2.75%. That's on news of a small disposal and the renewal of its credit facilities. While the vending machine company ME Group Some people might remember that used to be called PhotoMe International. The shares there are ahead by some 2.5%, and that is on a deal to buy Fujifilm's automated photo booth business in Japan for up to £5.5 million. On the foreign exchange markets, well, the main talking point this morning is the Turkish lira, which has hit another all-time low against the US dollar today. Sterling off 0.25% against the greenback, more or less unchanged against the euro. The single currency, meanwhile, off 0.1% against the dollar. As for the oil price, well, that has traded to the downside this morning as demand concerns have raised their head again. But as you can see, it's popped into positive territory during the last half hour. A barrel of Brent crude will currently set you back $76.09 a barrel. That's up 0.9%. Joining me this morning is Will Hobbs. He's Chief Investment Officer at Barclays UK Wealth Management. Will, good to see you this morning. Apart from the FTSE 100, equity markets had a pretty good run in the first half of this year. What are you expecting in the second half?
There is the big question, Ian. Yeah, it has been a good first half, and it's been a bit of a surprise to much of the commentariat. You know, one of the things I think that's really one of the major moves of this half has been the pricing out of a US recession, more or less, in regards to the bond market, and that's been very helpful. The other big story has been the AI story, as you well know, and that's supercharged some of the biggest names, particularly in the US. And if you look at, it's been a very narrow market, as people talk about. So I think if you look at the top 15 stocks, they've accounted for most of the gains. So the outlook for the second half is maybe a little bit more difficult.
Yeah.
Profits growth is still pretty mediocre, I would say, going forward.
And we've got this rising interest rate environment right around the world as well still.
Yeah, it's difficult, isn't it? And, you know, inflation's not a beaten foe just yet. And I think we want to be careful not to jump on that bandwagon. People have been looking for it for so long. You know, this peak in disinflationary forces that they may be overreading into it. But, you know, if we look a bit further out and remember, you know, most investors, their advantage were going to be not over, you know, beating the market over 6 months. It's more about the multi-year time frame. The arrival of AI is a really big deal because that new technology is what drives long-term investment returns. And this looks like the real thing. I think.
Yeah, it really does. I mean, some people are saying this is comparable to the launch of the smartphones in terms of the advances it means for businesses.
Well, yeah, I mean, you can go further back. I mean, people make comparisons with, you know, the big, generous, general-purpose technological breakthroughs of the past, all the way back to the printing press, electricity, and so on. It could be that transformative. I mean, we don't want to join the hype wagon too readily, but I think, you know, that should be seen as your sort of upside potential from stocks. And remember, we've been in this kind of productivity interregnum between the ICT revolution and the AI one ahead, and that AI one is now arriving by the looks of things. So that's exciting for investors.
In the meantime, though, we've had the global manufacturing PMIs, Purchasing Managing Index survey data today. Not terribly good, not least of all in this country.
I think that's right, Ian, and you've been saying for a while, you know, we've got in the UK, we've got you know, quite a difficult lunch to choke down first in terms of interest rates. The global economic outlook is still tricky. Europe has come to an almost standstill on the evidence of credit data. We'll have more manufacturing survey data for coming later this afternoon in the US. You know, the expectation is the world is going to slow a little bit in the short run, and we've still got those interest rates last year to digest. But look a bit further out, and you can see signs of optimism, I hope.
Oh, you're a glass half full man, Will. We'd like to see that. Good to see you this morning. Thank you. Still to come here on Ian King Live, how demand for expert advice on artificial intelligence has fueled a growth in management consultancy services. Don't go away.
I'm Dan Whitehead and I'm Sky News' West of England correspondent. From fishing communities to bustling cities, we spend every day reporting from across the region.
The pound has rallied, moderation, interest rates peaking.
I'm up at 6%.
The highest for 14 years.
Will that be the peak? Will it be a little bit lower?
It's
Crisis.
closer to a potential crash.
So many words, so many meanings. But what do they mean for you and your finances? Stay up to date on Sky News.
I'm Stuart Ramsey and I'm Sky's chief correspondent. Well, there's a real sense now that people are beginning to expect that this whole airlift is coming to an end, and they're really, really desperate. We saw snatch squads going in, grabbing people and putting them into trucks.
You either live and recover, or you die.
Okay, so that's like a war.
That's the war, yes.
We help you understand the world with us.
Over the
past 24 hours, the soldiers have been attacked on a number of occasions. It's really sending a clear message that Venezuela is eager for change. We're being crushed.
To take you to the heart of stories that shape our world.
They were convinced the United States would become hooked. Well, they were right.
An enormous explosion has just come down. I think it was a monster's just landed in between us.
The information on this could bring down the entire network, not just in Iraq and Syria, but across the world.
It's not out of control, but they've withdrawn. It's so hot.
Fly Emirates, fly better. Fly Emirates, fly better.
Welcome back. Evidence has emerged this morning of the extent to which businesses are beginning to embrace artificial intelligence and other digital tools. The Management Consultancies Association says demand for expert advice on digital technology, including AI, has helped drive a 23% rise in demand for its member services during the last year. Well, joining me now is Tamsin Isaacson, Chief Executive at the Management Consultancies Association. Tamsin, welcome to you. Is that the big driver of growth, AR, or is there more to it than that?
Well, it's AI and digital transformation, our biggest service line, and as you say, leading to the greatest amount of demand from clients for transformation and updating of their current systems. As ever, global businesses, UK business leaders turn to management consultants for their specialist expertise. We've been working with AI and advanced digital data for many years now, so relying on that expert digital experience is absolutely driving growth, as we've seen in last year's figures.
And is there even growth being seen across the various sectors that your members service?
Well, I think what we've seen is a real variety of growth as we've come out of the pandemic. So a lot of those sectors that were hit during the pandemic, such as retail and leisure, manufacturing, for example, those you are seeing improved performance. But as we've gone into 2023, we know some of those sectors have been impacted as well. But overall, a very positive posting of growth for the consultancy sector, 23%. Financial services and the reliance that those major institutions have on our sector for complying with regulation, for updating their services, that really is driving the greatest amount of growth.
Is there still growth being generated by Brexit and the changes in regulation that's entailed?
Well, absolutely. I think Brexit was never going to be a very short-term fix. These are global businesses that are managing huge supply chains and having to manage now with other global economic forces such as hyperinflation as well. So many businesses, both in the UK and overseas, are re-looking at their cost structures, their efficiencies, where they can supply from, and they are requiring the best procurement advice to deliver that. There is a huge focus, it must be said, in terms of cost efficiency, in terms of business improvement, and our sector, both small, medium and large firms, are assisting clients with that.
Now, nearly a third of fee income in the sector this year came from overseas clients. How long before that gets to 50-50?
Well, I think what we've seen is there was, as you say, a huge increase in exports really around the COVID pandemic, when a lot of international businesses realised how quick and easy you could access this brilliant expertise expertise that lives in the UK. We are seeing around 30% of our exports now delivered overseas, mainly to Europe, but also to US and Asia Pacific as well. And I think at the moment we're seeing that stabilise around 70% in the UK and 30% overseas. But it is great to see that the world is recognising that the best place to procure top management consultancy is in the UK, and that's why we're a world leader.
Yeah, now you hired the sector more than 2,800 graduate trainees during this. Probably a few students here watching, having just finished their finals. What sort of qualities do you look for in graduate recruits?
Well, the sector is looking at a widening, diverse talent pool to bring in the best talent from all fields of life into our many firms. People need to be bright, intelligent, ambitious, flexible. You're dealing with a job where you're going to service many different clients. But I think there is a big change in terms of what the attitudes are towards consulting firms. Many firms now recruit school leavers, recruits apprentices. So it's not the case that you have to just get a 2-1 and you can walk into a firm after doing that. Firms really want a diversity of experience, and they want to reflect the society that we work for. We work across central, local government, police forces, the NHS, as well as many, many private sector firms. And it's absolutely essential that as we build those teams that can make real differences and unlock value for clients, that we reflect the society we live in.
And no Oxford bias as there has been in the past?
Well, what we've seen actually over the last decade is a reduction in the number of Oxbridge recruits. So I think, all firms, and that's small, medium and large, really do have much more open recruitment processes to make sure that we get the best of talent wherever they are in the UK.
All right, Tamsin, got to leave it there. Good to see you this morning.
Ian.
Thank you. That's it from me for the moment. I'll be back with the afternoon edition of Business Live at 4:30. Hope very much to see you then. In the meantime, do stay tuned. After this short break, it's Jane Secker with all the latest from Paris. See you at 4:30.